Hello, everyone. Hope you guys are not sleepy already. And I would like to thank HCPI, also Karnataka University for inviting me, the entire Evolve team over here. You would see a lot of people wearing the Be Remarkable badges. They are from Evolve Design. I would also like to thank Dhaval Joshi for a beautiful presentation, and I'm very much happy because I would get to continue the topic that you initiated and get much more detailed deep dive into interfaces. So it's going to be like under the umbrella of intelligence, specifically focused under artificial intelligence. We have seen a lot of advancements in the user experience, user interface side of digital products. I'm going to talk more about like what's our role into it. But before we deep dive into that, I'm Yagnesh Ahir. I've been into design industry since more than 18 years now. I just realized this thing today while I was writing this one. I am founder of Paperclip Design. It's a UX consultancy company based out of Ahmedabad, and the only company which is working 4 days a week and producing worth more than 7 days ka work in like 4 days. Our vision is to work just 3 days a day for 4 days. Sorry, 3 hours a day for 4 days. We recently found Evolve Design Academy. This is somewhere between all the boot camps that you see that promises you in 99 rupees to become UX designers in 3 months. That's all like, crap. It takes more than 10,000 hours to become the UX person, but nobody is there to limit you to, start as a UX designer. Evolve Design Academy will talk more about it, post the session if we get enough time. Recently, I joined Buy Stadium, which is having one of the monopolies in employee recognition across the globe. I've joined that team as design coach, helping them to better the overall experience, not just the online but offline also. And I've been mentoring designers across the globe and have mentored 110 and helping them to land their dream job. Oh yeah. I have a question for all of you, but before this question, I have another question. How many of you are like scared of AI? How many of you are like happy that there's AI? Wow. I'm very happy. I'm very optimistic because we have AI. Just to answer it, one of the reasons why I'm so happy because it is letting us be more human now. And we'll uncover broadly about why I'm answering, that we get to stay more human through this talk. But before we jump into that, I have another question. There's a lot that is changing. We also saw in what Dhaval presented that what designer could be now, some changes in the design roles that people have been asking about. When interface starts thinking about you, what is our role then? So most of the time, what we say is like we should start with AI, but we should not start with AI. My answer to that is we should start with a moment. And this breaks, the entire mindset that we have, which is more around we have to use AI to do something and limiting the capability of what human can do, because humans are still way ahead than what AI can do or can achieve. At least that's what I believe. But to look at the interfaces, I would like to take you back to 1984 when the interfaces changed the last time, and it asked us to think about interfaces completely differently. Apple Macintosh was launched, and so if you remember, I don't know how many of or have seen the launch of. There's a very good teaser of Apple Macintosh, which is one of my favorite advertisement of the age that I have ever seen, where there's a woman who comes running across the stage and then throws the hammer. And that's the IBM on the screen. And it's actually disrupting the entire industry. So that was Steve Jobs asking everyone to, change the way we think about interfaces, how we interact with, computer, with the world and everything. This device was first introduced in 1984. And that's when Apple asked us that throw away the keyboard, point. Right? That's when we learned that, oh, there's something that I can hold and, browse through the screen. I no more have to type in things. So that was majorly about, we learn what we have learned so far. I'll also show what were the things that we had learned so far and then where it is going now as well. But then when they launched, all the experts, they laughed, and within 100 days, they were able to sell more than 70K devices. And this is huge. Back in 84, selling a digital device like this is like a huge success, right? Why this was happening, we'll also uncover that. But now, interface is learning to understand you. So far, we have been learning how to use an interface. We have learned how to use Photoshop, Figma, Canva, but now these softwares are also changing. They are also letting you think differently rather than just thinking about how should I move pixels here and there. Sorry, that transition went very bad. Okay. So where we came from, we'll go back, to 1960, where we'll focus on like 5 paradigm shifts. So 1960s and 70s, we were focused on, command line interface where there was no mouse. It was everything like, you used to type on the screen of computer. Sometimes you wouldn't see it also. Then moving to 84, what we saw, Macintosh and Windows, the two main giants. If you look at this column, we needed a lot of expertise to write command line interface. Then we needed a little bit lesser expertise to write this thing, but more expertise to see what is there on the screen. Then in 2007, iPhone launched, and like anyone without the mouse and all, you can touch, you can feel, the interface itself with the touch and all. Early 2010 and then late 2010, we saw rise of Alexa, Siri, people interacting with voice. Dhaval also mentioned one of the example of the auto guy nowadays using voice to communicate. But then now there's a lot of conversational AI that is happening, right? And what if you see the trend over here, it is moving to the space which I'm very much optimistic about, which is more around, letting us stay more human and less machine, right? This is going towards the reason why we should stay more human. We should think more from that perspective rather than thinking everything should be digitized. We need to learn technology. We need to learn technology, but more from the perspective where we stay human more. And that's when we realize that interfaces are becoming invisible. Invisible as in, even right now, we are not holding any devices. There's still like a lot of recording that is happening, a lot of processing that is happening. Like recently, I've been exploring some of the AI tools in video generation where there's a lot of data that I have. I cycle a lot. So I have a lot of video footages of cycling. Now I have more than 100 or 115 GB of videos. Now I don't have time to process all of that, but I can have AI do that thing without even interacting with it, for more than couple of times once I have defined, what it needs to be done. So it becomes more assistive to us then. So that's why all the interfaces you would see are becoming invisible. So this poses a very good question and also takes us to a point where we have to ask this question. Okay, so there has been we have been doing a lot in terms of where designers have focused in terms of changing how we think, how we interact from GUI to touch to voice. And then the fourth one is going to be what we can control. And so far we have been interacting with the computers, with the devices, where these interface waits for us to click, to type in something. Now, whatever you open, whatever application you open or whatever website that you open, things are already presented based on who you are, based on your preferences, based on context that you are into. And that's why interfaces are not going to wait for you. They are going to present something. They are always going to be processing something, even if you sit idle. So there's a lot of hyper personalization that is happening in AI and ML. This has been, happening and under development. Like right now, what we see in, the shift that is happening in AI, a lot of it has been there since 2010, 13, from ML, NLP perspective. I had designed one of my first software for a company into healthcare that was completely based on NLP and ML, and that reduced the amount of time a medical coder would spend by almost 5 hours. So they are saving more than 5 hours of time throughout the day. So they are able to earn more, and that economically it brings a lot of opportunities in the industry. If you see, so impact of designers in the economy, or as well as more from like human race perspective, there's a lot, like because of those 5 hours they were able to have dinner with their family. So that became our vision. So our KPI used to be that are they spending enough time with their family, because they used to spend more than 8 hours or 12 hours into working, and all of that, whatever they used to work, that was completely non-productive for them. Everything is happening behind the scenes. Like right now, as I mentioned, like sitting idle, still there are applications that's tracking everything. The smartwatches that you wear, it's tracking each and everything. Even if you sleeping, it is tracking what you are doing, what you're sleeping and all. We might see, there was one of the brainstorming session that we did where we designed a product that you can wear. It's more like a dream mask, dream nap. So if you want to take a 20-minute nap, you put that mask on and you can get a dream whatever you wish for. So you get a better nap and you get, you wake up fresh. Things happening, a lot of things processing happening behind the scenes, based on who you are, interfaces or the computers. When I say computers, I'm not talking about the computer, everything that is like can be programmed. So they are learning from your patterns, who you are, your behaviors, what you do. So it is shaping the interface for you. Now, I'll show one example. A Spotify home screen, even if I have the same account, forget about this screenshot also. If I open Spotify on my computer, if I open Spotify in my mobile, the home screens are going to be different, because in both the devices, I would be listening to different kind of music. So even with the same account, it is catering me a different kind of a home screen. So home screen is not the same home screen that you see that we had like 10 years ago or like 5 years ago. Now, things are changing. It is like becoming more predictive. And recently they launched the entire AI thingy. The DJ AI is what they say. It's very cool, but it would never ever play Fred again. I don't know. Every time I ask, it'll always play something else. But most of the time, it's playing something that you have always liked, something that you have always heard, something that from somebody else's playlist that you may have jammed with. So this is one of the example of that. Conversation has replaced the navigation, where there used to be like a lot of, we used to talk a lot about cognitive load, right? Because navigation doesn't need to be so complex and all. But then we saw the rise of conversational AI, chat GPTs, perplexity, Claude and all, where you don't need to navigate, you just sit, type whatever you want and things are there. Even to book tickets and all, flight tickets, movie tickets, if you want to research on that, you just open the screen and type in. You don't have to navigate to like multiple applications, multiple websites. Things are presented over there in a more concise way, and also in much more productive way for you. They are becoming more context aware. Even if you type in a very complex query or a very weird kind of prompt, it would still respond. And based on the responses and based on how you react to these tools, it will learn. The next time if you ask the same thing, it would present the same response in a very different way, considering that the earlier one did not serve you well. So it doesn't stay the same. Just like how you see the sky, it doesn't, like, you won't see that sky again ever. So we need to really think or unconventionally about when we think of navigation. So far we have been like doing a lot of information architecture work to specifically focused on designing the navigation. But now, what would be the navigation? If you have to develop an app, or if you have to design a mobile application for booking a cab, Uber won't be Uber. The design of Uber won't be the same if like we are designing that, considering the AI, ML, lot of neural networks that are there, and the advancements that are happening in hardware world also. Recently, I tried Booking.com, the AI trip planner that they have. It's still in beta mode, but so far we have been booking things by typing in where do you want to go, selecting the date range, how many people are traveling, what are the dates, the mode of travel, and all of that. But with just one prompt, I can get answers to things for which I may have to navigate to like multiple screens. Like just to get the answer to this question, I may have navigated to like 5 different screens on mobile app or desktop app or web app. But with this one prompt, I'm able to get the answer. So imagine, the cognitive load that would have been there and now where it would be. So there's a great opportunity for us where we don't have to solve the cognitive load problem anymore. Like there's a very different kind of cognitive load now because there's like a lot of responses to the question that you ask and the response that you get and which one to trust. Right? So trust factor is very important now. Earlier it was all transparent. Now, you have to trust the agent or the application which is throwing all of these things. And then we are seeing like the advancements that are happening. Canva is one of the biggest advancement in the automation where you don't have to think about removing the background. Like we used to spend more than 4 hours to remove a background from a simple photo. Now it just takes like not more than 30 seconds to remove a background while you do something else. AI is taking care of those things. I remember back in 2013, 14, we used to spend almost more than 80 hours just to create the pixel perfect design where we are not even designing, we are just moving the pixels. We don't have to do anything. We are not even spending more than 8 minutes these days to do that. So a lot of automation that is happening around the repetitive skill work that we see these days. So there's a very good tool that's called UI Wizard where you just upload a sketch like this. It will give you this version and then based on your prompts and all, it will create this. Okay. 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, we would have spent almost a week to reach to this version, right? Or it would have needed like 4 people to reach to this version. But now within like 4 minutes, you sketch something and it'll give you this. These days, you don't even need to sketch. You just need to write a prompt also, right? Google Stitch, how many of you have tried it? Oh, keep trying that because it needs to learn a lot. But you may have seen the video of Google Stitch where there's somebody who's ripping it off because the advertisement that they had where there's a sketch and what it is producing, it's like all manipulated. It is not how it is working, but it needs a lot of learning. So it needs a lot of learning from us. So keep using that. Probably we'll see a day where through a prompt, it is designing everything. Okay. This is something that I'm really liking it because the entire industry is like overly attached with outputs. Like everything that we saw, this is all output. Even this is also output, right? So what's happening? Because everything is getting auto-completed. You are trying to book a cab, it may get auto-completed. You are trying to design something, that design is getting auto-completed and you are getting the interface over there. So I've learned something from Nielsen Norman, one of the pioneers in design, where recently they had a talk and they mentioned a lot about that there is a shift in mindset that we need where we focus on designing the technology rather than designing within the technology all the products, because it is giving us the opportunity to focus on the umbrella rather than under the umbrella. So far we have been designing screens, designing workflows, which is using a technology. In that technology there is a product that we are building. Why don't you design something for it? The entire paradigm shift is happening now where we get to design the technology and not the product, because product is already getting designed. I'm talking more from the UI visuals perspective, things that are like more output driven, and this will let us stay more human. We have been doing like a lot of experiments at paperclip. Like there's a tool also, I'll show a screenshot of that, which we are trying to build, and probably we'll see within a month or something the advancement of that. But we started with a very wrong question, and I'm happy that we started with that wrong question because that led us to think more thoroughly that the use of AI, because we always ask that how do we use AI. In the beginning of this presentation, there was another statement that was saying that don't start with AI, start with a moment. So then we shifted our mindset and started asking that what should stay more human, what should stay human, because it's optimistically speaking, this is the point. If you follow Pink Floyd with that prism thing that they have, there's a light that's crossing the prism and the entire rainbow that is building up. Take the same analogy. Earlier we had one software that was catering to everyone. Right now everybody has one version of that software. So that software is almost become that your personalized software thingy that would act, that would predict, that would work as per who you are, rather than you learning, what that software is. So it is giving us an opportunity to stay more human, to focus on things like I like cycling a lot. I'll give most of my work to AI and I'll enjoy that. So that's letting me stay more human. I would get more opportunity to learn things into design, learn more about human psychology and all. Earlier, we would end up spending a lot of time in just pushing the pixels and getting the deliverables out. So now, no more we need to think about deliverables. Uh, we when we started paperclip, we used to focus a lot on generating outputs, screens and all. We used to charge per screen basis, then per hour basis. But then the advancement in the technology got us into the mindset where we focus on the outcome. How can what we are designing could impact the business? Then the next shift came where we started focusing on the impact, how this thing can impact not only the business but also the people who are going to use it. Not from the perspective where when they are going to use it they should find it easy to use, but the example of that medical coder that I gave, that how can we create something that they get to spend more time with their family, which was another example. And these days we are focusing more on the legacy. So if we hadn't had this advancement in the industry technologically, we wouldn't get the opportunity to level ourselves up, to focus more on doing things that would leave its own legacy. For us, skill work, we are keeping all the skill work to AI. We are giving all of that to AI. And what should remain to us? Everything that needs thinking, right? And also, this is little different than what Dhaval mentioned, where thinking is very difficult. Like it's boring and it's effort intensive. But at the same point of time, that's what we have compared to everything else that is there in the world or in the universe. Like the brain that we have, it would let us connect with us. If you're spiritually aware, then it would let us connect you within yourself. Through that, you can connect with the universe. But otherwise, also practically and capitalist point of view, if you think, it would give you an opportunity to think more broadly rather than just thinking about how to develop a skill, because now skill is no more there. Like earlier we used to do a lot of code quality checking. Nobody checks code quality when they are interviewing engineers, because AI is already taking care of that. So that's completely non-productive for any engineer to focus a lot on like developing the skill of having a good code quality. It's good to have a good eye to know what is good whenever somebody else is generating AI or anybody else, but we don't have to learn and become an expert into that. So it's giving us a good opportunity over there. So that's why we are focused more on thought works rather than skill work. So for us, AI takes care of everything that is related to labor-intensive efforts in designing interfaces, layout variations. Even when we do research and we have more than 6 months ka research data, earlier we used to spend more than a month just to synthesize, find out a pattern, connect the dots and all. These days we ask AI. I don't know if you have heard of Dovetail. Dovetail would literally transcribe and translate and then synthesize regional languages also, which was biggest blocker for us earlier. So we interviewed a few people in Andhra Pradesh, we interviewed few people in Kerala, then in Gujarat, and there was this person who did not know any of these languages. And that person need to understand what these people are saying. Dovetail helped us a lot to synthesize all that research data and get to the point where we do a lot of thinking then on the synthesis. So we identify everything that is non-productive, that's redundant. We take all of that into the AI and try to identify what tool can help us. Uh, Currently, I'm in the process of learning skills, and then there is a master skill that you can create or a lead that you can create, which would manage all of these skills. Now, this is not to replace or this is not to save cost where we no more hire designers, but it is giving us an opportunity to hire designers who would focus on thinking rather than just showing portfolio with a beautifully designed interface. So we own a lot of design judgment. Strategy is strategy is something that we focus a lot on. We have a design process called RC: research, strategize, execute, analyze. Our research and strategize is where we would like to focus a lot on and analyze. Execution part we would like to give it to mostly to the AI, and that way we are able to decide what should get designed and what should not get designed, rather than being within these questions, if that makes sense. This is an example of something that is still under development, and just created this interface only for this presentation. But there's a tool that we are creating. So we have an expertise into auditing anything complex in the world of softwares, which combines offline and online experiences for mostly B2B sector or B2B2C sector. Now, we used to spend more than 4 months to audit anything. And with the approach that we are taking over here, we would be able to spend no more than 1 week to complete the same audit. And the main reason why, because a lot of the audit required going through one screen to another and understanding the entire flow, and then focusing on the navigation, and then focusing on the workflow, and then the entire journey. Now we are not focusing on the last layer of the pyramid. We are focusing on the top of the pyramid, which is mostly the strategy. So if we are, let's say, auditing Uber, we won't be focusing on like at screen level details and all. We would be focusing at the journey level. Like when somebody realizes or gets aware that, oh, now I need to commute, what different options do I have, and why would they choose Uber, is where we would be focusing. And then their entire experience, to the point when they are getting dropped off and they get to choose another cab or whatever the mode of commute. So this is still under progress. Probably whenever we have a similar kind of session next time, we would show a demo of this thing. I would like to give an analogy. I think this is not clear. If you have seen how architects work, they create way more complex things than software people, because they are actually building something which we can't say, oh, this version is bad, let's break it down and create another one. It's very expensive and time sensitive. They focus more on the strategy, more on the structural part of it, but they will never focus how many screws or how this joint would work and all. They will focus more on the strength of it. And they let the software take care of that part of it. It's a very similar analogy that I would like to give, where from the interface design perspective or UX design perspective, not focusing on the skill work part of it, focusing more on things that will build the strength of the application or the product. A few years ago, I learned that product is not the experience, but experience is the product, where the software part becomes the part of the entire experience. So we saw where we came from, 1984 or even 1960, where we are right now, and where this is going is something that I would like to talk about, which is last part of the talk. So the best interface would become having literally having no interface. Now this doesn't mean that we won't have screens, we won't have anything to interact with, but fundamentally speaking, so far whatever we have been designing, which kept us thinking only at page level or component level, we are no more thinking about those areas anymore. Like nobody remembers how the UI of any of the softwares looks like these days. Earlier, everybody had to remember where is ASDF on the keyboard. Right now, I don't need to remember that because there's a voice. There used to, my elder brother, who was 5 years elder to me, he used to give exams, sitting on the typewriter and learning, and even having the speed, maximum speed of typing the characters and all. That skill is no more there. So there's a huge shift that is happening, and that's why it is letting us stay more human. There are three trajectories that I would like to talk about that we should be focusing on as designers. So there's something called ambient interfaces, agentic UX, and adaptive interfaces. Ambient interfaces are those which are heavily focused on the environment, the spatial part of it. All of you must have seen Apple Vision Pro or Meta glasses. So where there is a good, merge merging that is happening between the entire environment that you are in and the digital world. So we have a very critical role over that space, in that space where we don't have to focus on the pixels. We have to focus on, how a person who is wearing the meta glasses crossing a signal would stay safe while seeing the information on the glasses. And this was one of the biggest problems that Google Lenses faced. And that's why they took a step back, where they say that this is completely inhuman and going to be very, very chaotic in the environment where people, or like everybody is wearing the Google Lenses and walking around and, crashing into each other, because everybody is like, focusing on like what is presented on the screen and not what is there in the environment. So that problem is still there, and there's a lot of opportunity in that area. So that's what the ambient interfaces would be focusing on. So we have an opportunity to orchestrate the context where you would be experiencing digital and the physical world together, right? Apple Vision Pro is not going to stop. There are a lot of other companies who are getting into the same domain. There is a lot of holographic projection interface and the interactions that are getting developed, where you can interact with something that is holographically projected and it would react based on what is there in the environment. So how would you design for it? There are no screens over there. This is one of the, you must have seen the ad of Apple Vision Pro. Then there is agentic UX. This is the most common that we have seen today, where it is no more waiting for you to click. It is proactively thinking about what is next. It would always ask like, oh, this is what you want to do. This is the summary of it, or this is the response. Do you want me to summarize? Do you want me to document? Do you want me to do more research on it? So it's always ready for the next thing. But it is also taking you to a completely different route where there is a lot of distraction that is happening. It's kind of a rabbit hole these days, all the agentic experiences. Like if you sit on ChatGPT, you would not know where your 1 hour went by, but you went to ChatGPT just to ask one simple question and you ended up into a rabbit hole. So that's a big problem space that is there right now. As a designer, what can you do to solve that? So that's where the interface design part or the thought work would come into the picture. So we need to focus more on the context again, but more from the perspective of what kind of experience you want to build. Like the example of ChatGPT or the Claude or any other LLM tools that you take where you can have a conversation. But then there are follow-up questions that they ask, which we start answering then. And then they start answering. So there is the entire conversation that's going over there. So we are not there to have a conversation. We are there to get a task done. And once the task is done, we should be out of it. Just like how you go to an ATM machine, you don't go and sit there and keep interacting with the ATM machine. Right? So similar to that, all the agentic UX, that is, all the agentic tools that are there, they need to learn when to stop. But economically speaking, the more time you spend on that, the more, it'll get an opportunity to learn more from you and earn more from you. Right? So as humans, we need to learn when to stop. And as designers, ethically speaking, we need to be more human and be protecting, the human side of it rather than the digital side or the capital side of it. I wanted to show the growth of agentic UX only in the e-commerce space, right? If you see right now where we are, so the dark color thingy is all what we are focusing on, the consumer to agent, then business to agent, and then eventually it is going to be like agent to agent. So the top bar is agent to agent. If you see the rise of agent to agent compared to everything else, by 2033, there's a huge chunk that is getting built up, and this is going to go up. Right now, over here, the industry is of $7 billion. And this is majorly contributing to only the top 2 tiers, not the one which is, consumer to agent. And this is going to be 700 billion over a period of time, right? And everybody is focusing on that. Amazon, if you see nowadays, they have completely changed how you experience commerce. Earlier, you used to browse products. Now you browse videos, and whatever is shown on the video, you try to buy that. That is going to completely change, where it would understand what you are doing in your day-to-day life, and it would start suggesting the products for you. If you have learned anything about Nest, which is a home environment application and the devices, they have started contributing a lot into researching what people usually need whenever they are home, whenever they are not home, so that they can place the orders of those products or those things, or even subscribe to things that you would need eventually or whenever. So that thought is what agent to agent. And there's also, I haven't seen this thing, but there's also what I've heard is that there's entire completely different social media network of agents where they are talking about everything about human, which we don't know. We are not even allowed over there. So it's a bit scary, but we have everything in our control if we focus more on, thought part of it rather than skill part of it. Adaptive interfaces like Google Maps is, I'll show you the example of that. So Google Maps, if you use, and if you use continuously, let's say if you travel from your home to office every day at certain period of time, eventually it would start suggesting that, oh, this is a good time to leave. This is a good time, to take whatever the other routes that you wish to take, which would eventually give you the prioritized traffic updates and the commute shortcuts. This is more adaptive. There is way more, advancements that are happening already over here, where they are now integrating these maps into meta glasses, where if there are any critical points that are there, it will make a phone call directly without you waiting for anything. So you no more have to worry if there is something that's happening. You have to pick up the phone and call. It'll take care of it itself. So what should we design? Like so far, everything that I've talked about is, where AI is going to take care of interfaces, or even like interface is almost like having no interface at all. So as designers, what should we focus on? So systems judgment is something that we should be focusing on, like what to design, the defaults, its value. Whenever, if you have used, the preferences section in Claude, in ChatGPT or Perplexity, any other tools that you have used, there's a way where you can define the personality of that agent for you, right? So far, what we have seen, these agents, they are the biggest people pleaser these days. They will try to make you feel good because the kind of responses that it is giving to you. But if you go and ask any of these LLM tools to be honest, to be more specific, not to layer it up with anything that's sugary, it is going to give you a very different kind of response compared to just if you go ahead with the defaults. So as designers, we should be focusing a lot on designing things that are defaults and the values of it. If you use Perplexity, there is a very good way of defining how it should think, what it should think, where all it should focus on. So it's almost like, you are creating a clone of yourselves, but more for the skill work part of it, not for the thought work part of it. So you don't want to give the entire thought work to the AI, because AI can't predict future. It can just interpret what could be there in the future based on everything that it has access to, but it doesn't have access to everything. Okay. So the topic of this session was, the impact of AI on the interfaces, but that question is no more there. The real question is who shapes it, right? And we should be the one who should be protecting this thing and focusing more on the ThoughtWorks part of it, rather than getting into the storm of the AI. Better to look at the storm of the AI, what is happening around this entire world, and then steer what you should be doing, how you should be. Should you keep the storm going on, or should you calm it down rather than being inside the storm? So when you be outside of the storm, that's when you get an opportunity to focus more on the thought work side of it, rather than just pushing the pixels. And that was the end of it.